This podcast will fail, mostly because nobody's going to listen to it. But you might prove me wrong. Who knows? Here we are on episode 22. This podcast will fail. I am just some guy somewhere out in the world. Who I am is basically irrelevant. And I got some stuff to talk about, so I guess we'll get right into it here. I intend to examine life in my world, in the vast United States of America where I operate, society, and take a close look at the way that society is conducting itself in general, the way that things used to be, the way they are, and the way I think they're going to go. And not to put too fine a point on it, but the way I hope they're going to go. And self. And we're going to talk quite a bit today about people and how people conduct themselves. So most times that I've made these podcast episodes, I don't necessarily know what the episode is going to be called in advance. I know that I've got a basic idea of what I want to talk about, and I go into that conversation with a really often loose premise. More oftentimes than not, during the first season of this podcast, I found myself going off in different directions that I didn't expect. But rarely did I ever start an episode knowing for sure what the thing was going to be called. And I got struck with inspiration this morning, thinking about the core topic that I wanted to discuss. And that is the title of this episode, The Mighty, Mighty Keyboard Warrior. Yes, indeed. So, raise your hand, those of you who are not here and not actually listening to this. Raise your hand if you identify as a keyboard warrior. I'll wait. No, I won't wait. Continue on. I've got work to do. Keyboard warrior is that person who just pontificates from behind the keystrokes on their personal internet device. The most prescient place is the cesspool, otherwise known as Facebook. That is where the vast majority of keyboard warriors decide to spend their time and their energy and their efforts. But we're going to take a closer look at who's out there utilizing this social media space basically for no good reason other than to pick fights, to troll people, and to somehow either promote an agenda or rail against someone else's agenda. And that's kind of the setup of what I want to talk about today. So I will fully admit that not all keyboard warriors are awful people. And I think I didn't realize that until I just said that out loud right now. Like, everybody's got the idea of a troll, right? Everybody has dealt with trolls, especially, again, in social media settings where people will just hide behind the implied anonymity of that keyboard, of that digital communication with no name, no face, no accountability, and say the things that they would never necessarily say in public. And I say necessarily, and I'll try to remember to swing back to that a little bit later. But if you look at the things that people are willing to say to other people, some of the most hateful, heinous, disgusting, but not even going that far, a lot of times just mean-spirited, silly, stupid, childish, ridiculous insults and attacks against other people whom they don't like for whatever reason. That may be because of lifestyle choices, that may be because of personal ideology, politics, or whatever it happens to be. And clearly, as you know, we're moving through the end of 2020, and we're, at least in my country here in America, we're in a full-blown presidential election. So politics is certainly going to be the most obvious thing that people are out attacking each other about on social media. But it's interesting that, you know, the good-hearted keyboard warrior is often not the one that is lobbing insults and calling other people names. I find that they are the ones trying to, at least in some capacity, change hearts and minds and bring people around to a different way of looking. I think I can honestly say I was one of them, probably what year is this? I said 2020, so 12 years ago. I was pretty vocal on social media, on Facebook particularly. And I still am, don't get me wrong. I still stand very much behind my personal politics, and I am not afraid to jump into a divisive conversation and offer a viewpoint. Unfortunately, oftentimes that whole thing is based on having to point out someone else's failure to promote a coherent argument. To follow anything regarding a factual reading of a situation. People like to twist and distort. People like to add context that does not exist in a lot of cases. And it's frustrating. So, if I in any way identify as a keyboard warrior, it's because I feel compelled to shout this person down and to put them in their place and demonstrate their stupidity for everyone to see. Now, the unfortunate thing is that's exactly what the other side of the keyboard warrior world is doing too. These are the trolls, right? These are the folks that are out there without any real intent other than to stir shit up and to get under people's skin and to, pick at a scab or to leave a tack on someone's chair. These people just get such a level of glee out of creating a negative interaction with somebody else. And again, the vast majority of these folks are hiding behind fake usernames, fake profile pictures, and they just feel free to go ahead and just act in the worst ways possible. I've seen so much of it happening in recent weeks where it's really just like the volume's turned up to 11 on a lot of this stuff. And what is interesting to me is you can go to, pick any particular quote unquote news outlet, right? I don't care which bias you have, left or right. Go ahead, pick any of them. It doesn't matter if it's CNN or Fox News. It doesn't matter if it's MSNBC or Breitbart. Go to the comments sections on any one of these, and you will find people who are spending their lives literally in these comments sections on the people that they hate. Okay? So for example, if I were to go and look at any article posted by CNN, right, on CNN's Facebook page, you could count by the hundreds the number of people who hate CNN, who find CNN to be nothing but biased, and they just launch every single bomb they can possibly launch. Every single half-assed comment, every offhanded remark, every childish insult, and they do it to get a rise out of people. You could do the same thing. Go over to the Facebook page for Fox News or Breitbart, and you will find just as many people on the left in there shouting down and decrying the very existence of these right-leaning media and calling everybody idiots and calling everybody in there racists and everything else. And it just perpetuates conflict. So again, I find it particularly interesting that you would spend your time and effort not on the sources of information that you support or necessarily agree with. You think that your time is better spent attacking and putting all of your time and energy into the people you disagree with. Okay, so what kind of living a life is that necessarily, right? If it's so important to you to shout somebody down and prove your viewpoint to be superior, I guess I lose myself in the idea that I would promote what I believe in instead of simply attacking the things I don't believe in. And maybe that's an important distinction. Another piece of that, which I again find infinitely fascinating, is not just the trolls that hide behind fake profile images and fake names and whatevers. Plenty of them are certainly bots, right? And I can admit that I've spent some time trying to suss out which ones are bots, which ones are real profiles, especially on Facebook, where there are a halfway decent suite of options to let you hide your personal information if you don't want people to see your posts or your photos or whatever. But you can still, a lot of times, figure out pretty easily which of these are, Russian troll farm bots. And by the way, I'm just going to tell you, you're not going to see that many of them on the commenting on the Breitbart and Fox News articles. Just putting that out there. Take from it what you will. But the most interesting thing to me then is the rise of the keyboard warrior that stands loud and proud and tells you exactly who the hell they are and lets you see exactly where the hell they are and what they believe in. These are the folks that have risen from the dregs of every corner of our society in the last, I want to say it's more like 6 to 8 years, not so much just the last 4, but these are people that are unashamed in their vocal contempt for people that they disagree with politically. It's fascinating to me because I had an interaction very recently with someone who was a former employee of mine. Now, in my line of work and in my business, what I do, it's kind of expected that you're not going to disparage your employer on social media. Yes, indeed. You shouldn't have to say that, but in this day and age, you have a lot of young, dumb people who don't get it. But I found a comment being made by a former employee of mine in a political post from another colleague of mine. And I thought how disingenuous this comment was from this dude, right? What are we going to call this guy? We're going to call this guy, call him Matt, okay? We'll call him Matt. As good a name as any. So I see this comment from Matt, and I think, wow, that's really stupid. That's just disingenuous as all hell. And I take to my keyboard warrior stance, and I say, click, 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 click. Matt, that's really stupid. Because here's a piece of factual information, and here's a piece of factual information. These are not facts that I made up on my own. These are actual statistics towards a valid point. And pointing out that you, Mr. Matt, have taken something out of context or created a context that is convenient for your political bias. Okay. So the individual, rather than addressing my point directly regarding the subject at hand, he decides to say, well, you should know that your boss doesn't allow you to talk on social media, so your job's probably in jeopardy right now. And I thought, that's right, and you don't work here anymore, do you? But it's like, you're just so unashamed and unafraid to just say whatever to whoever. These people that conduct themselves in the most vile ways possible, right? How they treat other human beings, the level of vitriol and just basic disrespect for the art of discourse, right? For the art of conversation, for the legitimate airing of grievances of ideologies. No. These people are just out to win, right? To tear somebody down, to make someone else feel some type of pain, right? Whether that pain is potentially emotional, personal, and it's all about inflicting damage on someone else because you disagree with them, and that's just shocking to me. And again, over the last 6 to 8 years, these people have become emboldened, right? They don't care. You could go on social media and see video after video after video after video, actual live recordings of people behaving like shit human beings to other human beings, and they're unafraid, and they don't even care. Go ahead, record me, I don't care. And what's almost worse than that individual that conducts themselves that way in public, face to face with someone, is then the army of keyboard warrior trolls that will line up in defense of that person in the comments section. And I think that's just nuts to me. I don't think that this is what anybody thought, quote unquote, social media would become. When did I get Facebook? I got Facebook in 2007, I guess, right? It was fairly soon after it was actually Facebook and went public and everybody could sign on for free. So I've had a long time, and I don't know that anybody expected in the last decade and a half, or whatever it is, that this is what it would evolve into. Like, just this putrid public square where it's not even about, like I said, trying to convince hearts and minds. It's about tearing someone down who thinks differently than you do. And it's sad. It's really appalling to see the way that people treat each other. So I think each of us has to kind of try and reflect on who we are in the scope of this, right? And I think the reason I go around that point of saying the person who does it live to someone's face and the person who does it in the comments section, either admitting who they are and being loud and proud or hiding behind a fake profile, you want to say that people would be ashamed to say these things to their grandmother, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times these days, it's the grandmother that's saying these things. People used to have some level of modesty and humility, and I'm really not trying to date myself here. I am very nearly 45 years old, so I'm not trying to make myself sound like an ancient genius, but in my day, in the grand old 90s, we didn't speak to each other in such ways, right? It wasn't normal, and it wasn't considered reasonable to just simply treat other people poorly and feel proud about it. And that is the sad, unfortunate reality of the modern day keyboard warrior. So I'll close this episode out with two quick things. One is I challenge you to prove me wrong. If you've listened to this thing, and I don't necessarily think that anybody's still listening 19 minutes in to a podcast that nobody's listening to, but if you happen to be here, I challenge you to go and look at the social media account of a news outlet that you don't agree with. Go ahead. I'm just asking you to go look. Don't even look at the article, because the article is probably going to have some level of bias in it. But I want you to look at the comments surrounding it and ask yourself a question. Are most of the comments coming from people who agree with the post? Or how many of the comments are coming from people on the opposite side? And take a look at the context of what they say in those posts, and you decide for yourself. So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two, again, I don't really think that anybody's still listening at this point, but it's entirely possible that somebody could be. My challenge to you on my lovely little anonymous podcast here is I challenge you to find me. There is no social media for this podcast. You don't know my name. You don't know where I am. but there is indeed a trail of breadcrumbs through season 1 that might allow you to identify me. So my challenge is, someone out there, good luck finding me. I think it'd be really interesting if somebody does. But that's going to do it for today. That is all I've got. So thank you very much, anybody that did start to play this podcast. I appreciate your time. Not that I think that anybody did. It's irrelevant because I'm going to come back again tomorrow, and we'll have another conversation at that time. So thank you so much, and wherever you are, have a good one.